Hey, what is up, Woods Edge young adults? Maybe you're not a Woods Edge young adult, but you're a young adult in the Houston area and some friend sent this to you. Welcome, glad you're watching. My name is Justin. I'm the student and young adult pastor at Woods Edge, and I am here to introduce you to a great friend of mine. His name is Curtis Rosinski, and Curtis is our new associate young adult pastor. If you're a part of our Woods Edge community, what that means and what that's going to look like is since I've been on staff here at Woods Edge for a few years and I know the culture here, I'm going to give visionary leadership to young adults, and I'll give, spiritual covering. I'll be praying for young adults, be involved in coaching Curtis, and Curtis is our associate young adult pastor, and he's going to function as the shepherd for our young adult community, helping young adults get plugged into what it looks like to love Jesus, journey together, and bring hope in our community here in Houston and across the world. And so Curtis and I have actually known each other for almost 10 years now. Curtis, I know, got saved at his later years in high school, and I was a pastor on staff at the church that he got saved at, and so we would cross paths for a little while, and he ended up interning at the church for a season and ended up working much more closely in children's ministry whenever he interned at the church, and then God called me and my family somewhere else, and so we went and church planted for a little while, and Curtis was a pastor on staff at that church after a little while, became a pastor there. And so Curtis, I know the environment that he's come from, and he has lots of experience as a student pastor, a young adult pastor, a small group pastor. And so if you're part of Woods Edge and you're part of the family in our community here, that should be really exciting because he's lived in a lot of different worlds and worn a lot of different hats in a church like Woods Edge. And so I think it's going to be really awesome for him to be able to connect young adults into other ministries and other opportunities around Woods Edge. But Curtis, man, dude, I'm excited to have you. First of all, you know this, but we prayed for a long time for a young adult pastor. I've been acting as a young adult pastor since the beginning of September. And so it is really, really an answer to prayer that you're here. And I want you to know, and I want them to know, I'm excited. I just feel like the way that God has wired you is going to uniquely serve our body. The experiences that you've been through, your story of how you came to Jesus, things that you've wrestled through, all family dynamics that you're currently walking through, have walked through, all of that stuff, man, is what so many people go through. And so you've lived a lot more life than your 28 years. And so, dude, I really do think it's an answer to prayer that you are here leading this community. And so, dude, I'm really excited for the future. Is there anything? Let's ask some ridiculous questions really fast, okay? Let's just do rapid fire, okay? So rapid fire questions. I'll give you two options, and you just have to pick the one you like more. So I'll make it easy on you, okay? But this'll, man, some people might never show up again after they watch this video.
Lines in the sand.
Okay, so pancakes or waffles?
Oh, pancakes.
Okay, pancakes. Bacon or sausage?
Bacon.
Batman or Superman?
Oh gosh, Superman.
Okay. Marvel or DC?
Yeah, see, that's it. Marvel.
Marvel.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Mountains or beaches?
I'm a beach guy.
City or country?
City.
Okay. Okay. Sunsets or sunrise?
There's reasons for all these. It's definitely the sunrise.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I don't do mornings. Sunrise is not, what I think sunrises are more beautiful, honestly, and more peaceful than sunset. I just will never wake up to see one.
Yeah, see, I want to be in bed before the sunset. So.
Yeah, no, we're different people, man.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well, this is good, bro. So, dude, share your heart. You've lived, you grew up around this area, the Woodlands area, you went to Oak Ridge High School. But dude, share your heart and what you experienced growing up around here, being a young adult here, and just your heart and your passion for young adults and Houston as a whole.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful. I moved out to the Atascocita area. That was where the Lord really opened up a door for me to be in vocational ministry. And so that was kind of my first, okay, I'm jumping all in. But being originally from the Spring area, going to Oak Ridge, mom living in the Woodlands, obviously having divorced parents, this is home. And so it's like actually like really refreshing coming back to this area. A lot of the friendships that I developed growing up are still the friendships that I've like maintained, even though I've been kind of an hour away, 45 minutes away from this area. But I always look forward to coming back because this is what I've known as community. And so
Cool.
just being back over here, I'm so excited to do ministry back in a place where I was like, man, this is where I came to the Lord at. Man, these are the communities that I've been a part of, whether it's been the sports communities or just being able to rekindle friendships. And man, I have so many different friends who are also in vocational ministry who are doing like young adult ministry in this area as well. And so I think for me, there's excitement to be like, wow, not only do I get to be close to my family again, but man, I'm excited to get to really invest in a community that I feel like I grew up in. And so, man, I'm stoked to be back over here. Like it's actually been really interesting because coming here on weekends, I've started to see people that I'm like, man, I haven't seen you in years. Like, this is wild. Like, I'm like, I didn't even know they went to this church. Like, and so it's just been, I think that has been something that I'm just like very much excited about because I'm like, oh, there's a community here that is really healthy. And I'm excited to, one, invite people to come join and be a part of that, but continue to cultivate and develop a deeper sense of community. So yeah, very excited.
It's awesome, bro. You have experience in different like areas of ministry, and I know that you're especially passionate about certain things. What would you say are like your top 3 ministry passions? Like if you're discipling people, what are 3 things you're like, man, I just gravitate towards these types of things?
Well, let me tell you my personal mission statement because I feel like a lot of things kind of fall under that and are very kind of close to that. You'll kind of know like, oh, what is Curtis passionate? Anything close to this, it's like I'm just excited about always. But one, it's to reach the unreached, and then to help people be all that God is calling them to be. And so I think there's this idea of like being evangelistic where I'm like, okay, I'll talk to a wall. If nobody's going to talk to me, I'm going to talk to the tree. So there's that point where I'm just like, man, I want to reach people. Like I really want to try to figure out how to have conversations with people and start to stir something where I'm like, okay, Lord, like, what do you want to do in this person's life? And so that's something that I've always been passionate about. And it's actually really beautiful because after coming to know the Lord, I was already like that. Like that's just who I was. And so coming to like love Jesus and know him intimately, there's this place where I'm like, man, I want everybody to just like have a personal encounter with the Lord. And so genuinely like interacting with people who I've never interacted before is just fun because I'm like, oh, we have like the living God who knows them and I don't. And so I'm just excited to like get to like to introduce them to them. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm wired as evangelistic. But with the idea of, man, I want people to be all who God is calling them to be. Like there's this sense of like, man, how do we raise people up to truly know what it means to know their identity in Christ and then to grow in the gifts that God has given them? Because we all have gift sets. And maybe if mine is more evangelistic, then great. But the reality is that, man, we need people who are wired completely different to be able to complete the things that God wants to accomplish in this area, in this community. And so, I'm probably not the most gifted in everything, but I am really passionate about the reality that, man, what would it look like if we all used our God-given gifts for his glory? To meet people where they're at, man, it's insane. So
I love that. And especially with young adults, man. I mean, that's the stage. Like that's what you're 18 to 25, you're trying to figure out, maybe even all the way through your 20s. Like you're trying to figure out like, okay, am I good at this? Am I passionate about this? So much of it is trial and error. So much of it is like, you need feedback. You need a pastor. You need a community. You need friends who are able to speak into. Dude, you're better at that than you think you are. Like lean into that, or yeah, hey bro, you can't sing. Like you shouldn't be doing worship. Like you need people to be honest with you. You need people to love you enough to help sharpen you that way.
It's really good.
And there's no better time than young adults. Like you still have a covering a lot of times of family and like, so you can take safer risks. And so one thing that I love about who you are is you love recognizing what people are gifted in and then trying to breathe on that so that the flame goes. And so I'm excited to see you just get to know our young adult community and figure out their giftings and help kind of maybe help put some structure and some language and some vision to what's maybe possible for them.
Yeah.
Bro, another thing that is really close to your heart, I know, is community. What kind of impact has community had in your life? How has community shaped you in your spiritual formation? And how do you see community looking in young adults? What's your heart for like the culture of what the people of God look like in that space?
Yeah, I think what's cool about community is man, I know that obviously we have a Sunday night service, and we have prayer nights on Wednesday as a church. Like, man, we have our Thursday where we're connecting and opening up a space where it's like, man, invite people to come be a part of what we're doing. I feel like I've got to be a part of all those different aspects in different ways. And those have been so important to the development of who I am today. And one, what's actually really beautiful is just as y'all have Thursday nights here where it's like, hey, come and invite your friends who maybe would never come on a normal Sunday to come and be involved. Like that was my experience. I went to church for the first time to play volleyball. You know, and it was just
they love volleyball around here, man.
Oh, praise God. But I was that kid, like, just imagine this, and you'd probably know people like this if you've ever seen them, but especially in like the church culture where it's like you invite some friends who are just like ultra unchurched. Like I was the guy who's standing like on the volleyball court, hitting the ball into the net and saying cuss words, and people are just like, oh, like we're at church. Like I remember one of my best friends being like, Curtis, like this is not the place.
Chill, bro.
Like, yeah, bro. It was, but that was my experience. Like I came into a community that loved me, accepted me, obviously rebuked me a little bit when I needed to be rebuked, but that was kind of my intro.
Yeah.
And then what was really beautiful is that grew into like spiritual formation group as well. And so I had like a community around me who not just was my intro into the church, but people who were invested into my life spiritually. And that was the people that I was doing life with on the day-to-day basis. And so I'm so thankful for, man, the young adults who at the time, I mean, I was a high school student, but I'm thankful for the young adults who, man, were just a few steps farther than me, who were like, man, asking the hard questions. Like, like I remember there's been multiple relationships that every time, and this was like a really cool thing because these are the people that I'm interacting with week to week.
Yeah.
But every time I had a conversation with them, they're asking about my spiritual health. And I'm like, wow, like that's what community is. Like it's not somebody who just is like, hey, let's just go grab lunch to grab lunch.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I want to invest into your life and know where you're at spiritually and how can I encourage and sharpen what the Lord's trying to do in your life. And so that led to me obviously being a part of a life group. And so I know that there's different names for all these different things wherever you go. And so
it's a small group of people.
It's a small group of people, right? Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And so that was huge for me, you know, and I think that's why a little bit of me is like so excited to be back in this area because I'm like, oh, like I still know and interact with everybody that has been a part of my community groups.
It's awesome.
And so that's something that I want to continue to like breathe on and really invest in and try to create space for here at this church. I know that we have something on Sunday nights where it's like, hey, we have our small groups, but like, what would it look like where we do life outside of the church more than just on a Sunday?
Yeah.
And not to say that that's not good or any of those things, but I'm like, man, what does it look like to genuinely like follow Christ, to live in community? What does it look like to say yes to him and live without bounds, no matter where we're at? And so I know that community is so important. And then one thing that I'm extremely passionate about talking about community groups and life groups and the spiritual development is having relationships with people who have wisdom, And so that has been so crucial for me. It's really funny because a lot of my moral failures, like early on into just me being a believer, like, dude, the sanctification process has been so slow for me. I'll just be honest. Like, I feel that people laugh, but I'm just like, oh, dude, like, I just like, I run hard, I fall hard, like, and I'm like, and then I have to repent hard, and I'm like, boy, how did I get here? But it was actually really crazy. Early on to me being a believer, man, I remember having like issues like relationally. And I had a mentor who I didn't want as a mentor, but they were like, he's going to be your mentor. And it was your dad. And so baby. It was actually like so cool. But I look back at that and I'm like, man, I'm so thankful because, and at the time I really didn't want to like submit to a higher authority of like, okay, cool. Like, obviously there's things in my life that need to change. And I already know that, but what does it look like for somebody to like be able to invest into my life who stages ahead of me and also has like the insight and wisdom to be able to meet me where I'm at and then to help me be able to like process and walk through these things in a healthy way. Yeah. And so I'm like super passionate about finding mentors. And so one of the things that hopefully, obviously this isn't going to be something that we could probably start tomorrow, but there's just been this dream that the Lord has kind of put on my heart. And originally he called it like host homes. And I was like, that's interesting. I don't know why. But the reality of like, man, what would it look like to have people who are years ahead of us, young adult wise, and trying to figure out how to incorporate them and give young adults easy access into like active mentorship and discipleship. And so obviously I know that there's community groups as a church that Woods Edge has that is phenomenal because that instantly gives us access into going and meeting people. And we're going to be the youngest in the room. But to get to a place where that's okay and where we long for that, to be like, man, I actually don't want to like come here and contribute anything other than just listen. Like God gave me 2 ears for a reason and one mouth. And this is something that I actively am learning, but because I like to talk, but there's something beautiful about that where it's like, how can I find a place where I can just sit and listen and get insight and wisdom and creating space for that. And so, that's something I'm really passionate about. And so, man, I look forward to the community aspect and seeing community grow in ways that we've never seen it before. Obviously, relationally, spiritually, but then what would it look like to really just create a space where we're like, man, we long to sit at the feet of our elders because there's always something more to grow and learn and get. So
I love that. I think there's a bunch of things that I think intuitively, like just is your heart that things that you really value that our community really values. And so like one of those things is, man, we love to reach our friends. Like we love Thursday nights. Our young adults are super intentional on Thursday nights to invite friends who need a safe place to come. And they're also intentional to be having conversations and thinking about ways that they can bring up gospel conversations. Our community also really values like spending time together. As young adults, people who are like-minded in similar stage of life, who are going through so many of the same things, being able to live life together. And then even like transitioning from that into, and I'm sure a lot of our young adults, as you're saying this, I hope like they long for that as well, is the mentorship piece of like, hey, and I know my heart would be not, and you said this, not just spiritually, like not just a spiritual mentor, but like, man, you're getting into real estate, like that's what you feel like God's calling you to, dude. Let me connect you to this person who's been doing it for 20 years and like runs this town. Like, oh, hey, you're getting into film. Like, here, let me connect you to some people that I know that work in the film industry.
Or you're filing taxes for the first time.
Yeah, hey, you're buying a home. Let me connect you with someone who does mortgages. I think let me connect you with a mechanic. Like, let me, you just moved out of your parents' house. Let me help you get set up with an adult doctor and a real dentist. Like, stop going to the pediatrician. Like, those types of things. Sorry if I offended you. I love you. I'm just joking. Dude, but I think I think there's some of those things. If it makes you feel any better, I haven't been a doctor in like 10 years. My body's probably falling apart. It's okay. But like, I just think discipleship is in every area of life, and it is so beneficial. Some of the things that I like save money on now, ways that I parent my kids. Like, I've learned tips and tricks and ways to do things from people that are way ahead of me. And so getting our young adults connected to people who are farther down the road in business, farther down the road in dating or marriage, farther down the road in parenting, like all of those things are so beneficial. We desperately need it. And we're trying to all just figure it out on our own. And you can only learn so much from YouTube, man. So at some point, how to raise a child. I need a YouTube video. Lord, save me.
Goodness.
So, man, I'm excited. I think you like creating that community that, starts with young adults, but expands into other healthy church growth and mentorship and discipleship processes. Like, all of that is so healthy.
Yeah, it's really good.
So I'm really excited for the future of young adults. I'm excited that you're the guy. Is there anything that's just on your heart that you're like, I just want to share this, man. I want them to know this.
Yeah, I would say, like, man, again, I think it all comes back to this idea of like, what would it look like this year? As everybody's starting to think about what their resolution is for this year, like, what would it look like to allow God to write your resolution this year? What would it look like to be able to say, like, man, I might have dreams or I might have visions, but God, I want you to be the one who truly writes what the next month is going to look like, to truly write what the next week's going to look like. And for us to be able to submit to that, I know that that's something that the Lord has really done on my heart, and I look forward to being able to talk about that on Sunday. But really talking about this place where it's like, man, we don't want to be sufficient in the things that we like, the statements or the knowledge in which we have. Like, we want to be able to lean completely on who the Lord is, because, man, He's the one that created us with the gifts that we have, and so. I don't know. I think I'm just coming back, and I know that might sound so basic, but man, imagine 2024 if it was just the year, not where you became the best businessman that you ever thought you could possibly be, but what if it was the year that you really like submitted to the Lord more than you ever have? And see what God decides to do with your life. Because let me tell you, like, maybe there is the reality that you probably will be a better businessman in your submission to the Lord. Like, that's just, these things will happen, right? But man, I just believe that we're gonna see God in ways that we've never seen Him before when we truly lay down our agendas and really just say, okay, God, 2024, like, as people start to believe. It's so funny. I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, everybody just thinks it's a fresh start. And it is. And I'm like, praise God for that. Like, it's just funny how we kind of get there and we're like, 2023 is rough. Like, but we get to this place and it's like, but it's refreshing to think and be like, okay, like, as we are thinking about fresh starts, like, what would it look like to really just resubmit back to the Lord, and maybe even submit to the Lord things that we've never submitted before. So
I love that, bro. There are a lot of people that are already a part of our young adult community, and change is hard. Even if you love change, you step into it and you're like, oh, this is different, and there's just new learnings and new rhythms and all of that. And so if there's anyone who's maybe hesitant, knowing like, man, leadership is changing, what does that look like? If there's anyone that's hesitant, what do you want to say to somebody to be like, hey, come give it a shot?
Yeah. Can I preface it and say this first is like, man, I don't want to come in here and just like flip tables and be like, dude, everything y'all done is wrong. Like, y'all are terrible. Like, that's not what I want to come in and do and say. And so I hope that can first, one, just be able to give you confidence that I'm not going to come in and be like, dude, y'all have just done everything wrong. Because when I come to Woods Edge, young adults specifically, like the culture, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Like, it has been so refreshing to come to a place where I'm just like, man, I can come and just worship freely. I can come to a place and be biblically, like, with truth, rebuked and encouraged and challenged. Like that is something that is just so refreshing. And then to be able to look at the community and be like, man, like, they are invested spiritually in each other's lives. Like, these are not things that are going to end up changing. Like, culturally, like that I believe is so important. When it comes to change, like, I hope that I can say it this way, man, I am trying to figure out and think, like, man, how can we create a space that would be awesome and be structured in a way that we'd be able to healthily grow. And so when we do think of change, like, I don't want to think of just a tearing down and like bad, like, but more of thinking in the lines of, what would it look like if maybe we readjusted or did something different to try to create a better environment, maybe, so that somebody would be able to come in and walk in and be like, oh, this feels really cool, or this is a little bit different. Because there's not like something that I'm just like, oh, that's just terrible. Like, I can't believe y'all do that. But I think there is something in change. Every change will feel like the biggest change in the world.
Yeah, it's always hard.
It's always hard. And it's like, man, I've been through so many seasons of change, and different ministries, and coming in with different leadership. And you always like have to navigate the reality that like some things are going to look different. But just because some things are different doesn't mean it's bad.
Yep.
And just because things may look different doesn't mean that things are lost.
Yeah.
And so I really am hoping and praying that one, you be encouraged, because I'm not here to shift a culture and be like, dude, I can't believe the culture that's been built. The culture is amazing.
Yeah.
But if there is change, man, I want to see people reached in this community more than we've ever seen before. Like, man, I want Woods Edge to be a place that, man, people from all walks of life feel, whether they're a believer, a non-believer, somebody who's never walked into a church, to be able to walk in and be like, oh, dude, this is a cool place. Like, man, I want there to be a thriving welcome team. Like, man, I want there to be people that walk in and like me not have to be the person that has to worry about whether or not that person's connected afterward or not, because the culture is, we're so excited that you're involved, and there's already connection that's being built based on people's relationships that are already outside of who I am. And so that's the stuff that's already happening. And so that's just what I want to say to anybody who might be worried or hesitant is like, man, let's walk through this together. Let's have the hard conversations, and let's dream about what the Lord can do in 2024. As we are talking about what it would look like to submit to the Lord 2024 in advance, like, can we just submit the ministry that the Lord wants to do at Woods Edge, young adults, to the Lord, and say, okay, God, we're open to whatever that might look. I'm not perfect. Let me say that. I don't have every idea figured out. But man, if there's one thing that I want to do more than anything else, it's submit to the Lord. And so I hope that would be able to be an encouragement of to anybody who's asking that question, because, man, I want to pray. I'm going to be praying before any decision's ever made. Like, it's like, man, I want the Lord to speak. Like, God's input into this is way, way better than any input I can ever have. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I love that, bro. And I just want to say, as the person who's providing, leadership and oversight for young adults, like, my heart is to help young adults come to know who Jesus is and grow in a vibrant relationship with him. That's like, really, it really is that simple. We want to help people love Jesus, journey together, and bring hope. And so Curtis is going to be getting to know our community and getting to know people and ask questions and evaluate and really figure out what is special about this community. And what I want to encourage all of us, for instance, I've been leading this ministry for a season at a time, but the reality is if Curtis is shepherding young adults now, he's going to be able to make decisions that maybe he changes things that I created, you know what I mean? Or I started, or I would have maybe done it this way. Like, that's okay if it's a preference thing. And so I just want to challenge all of us when we face any change in our life, and as we face change moving forward in young adults, is to really wrestle with, is this a preference?
Wow.
Or is this like, man, there's something wrong about this. Like, this is not biblical. This is not, because at the end of the day, we all have individual personalities. So if there's 40 people, 60 people in our young adult ministry, well, there are 60 different opinions on how it should be done to directly cater to how that individual would be best discipled. And so it's not realistic to think that it's going to hit everybody. And so we pray really, really hard to make the best decisions possible that are going to be the best way to disciple everyone. And so what we want to try really, really hard to do is figure out, like, what is special about this thing. So if we're ever going to make any change in young adults, we're going to go, what is so special about the community groups here at Young Adults? Well, whatever is so special, we can't change that. Like, that's who we are. That's what God has made this group and called us to. And so there are certain things that are so special. We're like, this is who we are. We don't want to change that. But there are a lot of things about how things are done, not why they are done. And how it's done can be different. That's a preference thing. That can be a method. That can be based on my experience. I would do it this way. And so I just want to encourage all of us to be okay with things being different and wrestling with, man, is this a preference? Because if it's a preference, then I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But man, if you have something that you're really wrestling with and you're like, I don't think this is the best way to disciple this community. I don't think this is the best way for us to figure out how to follow Jesus more intimately. Then man, bring those things up. Like, we're a community of people. And so talk to Curtis, like, go to him and say, hey man, can you help me understand why this is happening and why we're doing this way? And man, Curtis will be happy to explain any of that to anyone, because we do. Like, we want to disciple people well. We want to love Jesus. We want strong, healthy community. And the ministry is so healthy and so vibrant, and the culture is so good. We want to keep the things that are so special, while at the same time looking ahead and going, God, where do you have for us in the future? And if you have that for us, well, then by the sheer nature of we're going somewhere else, we can't stay here. We can't just keep doing the same thing forever and expect for God to take us into new territory.
Really,
and so we have to be okay figuring out what is so special, how do we keep that sacred, and how do we protect it while adapting the things that might be preferences so that we can go to new places that God is calling us to. And so, man, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for young adult ministry. There are so many young adults in this area who do not know Jesus, who want to know Jesus. We have so many universities. We have the largest community college in Texas right here. There's so much opportunity. Jesus would say it this way: the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And so, man, Curtis, we have prayed for you to be here. I'm excited for you to step in, get to know our young adults, figure out what they love about this ministry so that you can help strengthen all the things that they love and that are growing, and tweak little things to just make it even better. And so, man, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what God has. And man, I'm excited that you are the person that God has brought here. I love the way that you love Jesus, the way that you love your wife. And I know that you're going to love our young adults really well, man.
Come on.
So I'm excited, bro.
Thank you, bro.
It's going to be good. Young adults, if you need anything, reach out to Curtis. If you want to grab coffee, grab lunch, hit him up. He wants to spend time with you guys. So if you're part of our Woods Edge community, reach out to Curtis. If you're new and you're watching this and you're like, man, that sounds interesting, come check it out. We have services 6 p.m. on Sunday night, and we've got a house party that's just a safe hangout place on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. at Woods Edge Community Church in the student building. Love you guys. If you have any questions, let us know.